Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. I hope you're doing well today. I have a book review for you of a book that people have been asking me to review for a long time, because I did the other two books in the series before they did like a small reboot thing. We'll cover the reboot thing possibly tonight, maybe tomorrow, I'm not really sure just yet. God willing, I'm going to get onto it this weekend and talk about that. Anyway, the book I'm going to be reviewing right now, that was a lot of jumbled together words. I'm sorry. We're going to be talking about Goosebumps, Three Ghoulish Graphix Tales. It's also called Goosebumps Graphix, for anybody who doesn't know. This is Volume 1, Creepy Creatures. I've seen hardcovers of this getting passed around, like on eBay. I've kind of thought about picking them up at some point, but I wanted to wait until I read this one to see what it was actually like. There's a big like hit or miss with these books. Typically, they're basically direct adaptations of the novels, the specific standalone novels. For example, this one has Werewolf of Fever Swamp, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. And they adapt each of those actual novels, and they'll have one person that does all the art and just kind of takes the words directly from the book and puts them in here. And that's basically the way they adapt these. This is Volume 1. Like I said, I have reviewed Volume 2 and Volume 3 here on my channel. You can also find that in the playlist called Goosebumps Comic Reviews. You'll probably see them on there. I've also reviewed the IDW series up until the new one called Secret of Fever Swamp. Haven't read that yet. But I will say this, I'm on a werewolf review-a-thon right now with two other YouTubers out here in the Goosebumps community. One is Goosebumps Completionist, who kind of kicked off this whole thing. I will put his link to his channel down in the description for you. There's also another fellow named Monster Blood here on YouTube. He's kind of harder to find his reviews and stuff, so I'm going to put that link down below as well for you to help you out too. He's not going to review every single one each week with me and Completionist, but at some point he will kind of just do a big rating video on all the werewolf stories, and we're basically going through, and like I said, this whole review-a-thon is about werewolf stories. Currently I'm just working my way through each iteration of Werewolf of Fever Swamp. I just read the book for the first time yesterday and finished that. I reviewed it. Then of course tonight I had a episode review for the actual TV episode two-parter thing from the old 90s TV show of that episode, Werewolf of Fever Swamp. And now I had to wait and wait and wait. After I already read Scarecrow Walks at Midnight and Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, I finally got around to reading Fever Swamp. So I'm now reading these adaptations here. And I gotta tell you, this is really good. It has the same problem that the other two Goosebumps Graphix series books had. And that problem that I've always talked about is that the art changes are typically not a problem until the last book of the whole adaptation selection. I'm not sure if any of these three guys have done adaptations in the other Goosebumps graphics. I think at least one has, I'm not really sure. We'll talk more about them at some point. But I will say for right now, I don't think that's the case. So I really, every time I read one of these Goosebumps Graphix things, especially right now, I've been in the big mood to read comics, and of course these are done as comic adaptations of those novels I love so much. I'm a fan of all three of these books, the actual novels. The adaptations here, not always. The Goosebumps Graphix adaptations can typically be an issue because of the art style. This carried on that curse. This kind of started it, really, because it's Volume 1. Volume 2 and Volume 3 have the same curse. You'll have like two stories out of the three that will be phenomenal in their execution of being an adaptation, and the art will be beautiful and perfect and suitable, and then they ruin it with like the last story of the book every single time. Now, I have not read the newest book that's kind of like these, like a reboot book called like Slappy Tales of Terror or something like that. It's also a thing. It also adapts Not a Living Dummy, the original book. Gonna talk about that at some point, hopefully tonight, but we'll see. In this situation, I hate how it happened here too. This time the victim of the terrible art syndrome was Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, which is a really solid book for the most part. It isn't great, it isn't truly wonderfully perfect or anything, but it's good, it's solid. However, Werewolf of Fever Swamp is what you start off reading this book for, and each of these adaptations are about 40 to 50 pages apiece. The whole overall book is 136 pages. Now, Werewolf of Fever Swamp is what you start off this reading with, like I said, and it's great. It's great. It's seriously great. It's so faithful to the old book, and it's a great adaptation. The art looks really good. I'll show you some of the art from each of these stories. I don't know if I've ever done this before, but I'm trying to find some solid drawings, like when they're in the woods. A lot of the story, and I'll kind of give you a small summary of each of these stories. Not a summary with spoilers, but just spoiler-free. I really like the art. The people in the Werewolf of Fever Swamp adaptation are a little odd looking. I will say that. Werewolf of Fever Swamp is adapted by Gabriel Hernandez. I'm pretty sure that Hernandez has worked on some of those other Goosebumps graphics, if not on both of them. I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty confident he had. He's great. Really love this. I think he was perfect for adapting this. This, of course, as the title says, is a werewolf story. It's about a family moving to Florida, I believe is what it was, out in kind of the swamps. The parents are scientists, and they're doing an experiment on these like South American deer that they're holding in a pen in like a cage in their backyard. And they're eventually going to release these out into the wilderness. So the main character, Grady, and his sister Emily have to move out to this swampy area with their parents. And of course, while he's there, they start hearing howling at nighttime and stuff. He also encounters a big dog, and he wants to adopt that dog sorta into the family. He calls it Wolf. And there's also some other kids in the neighborhood named Cassie and Will. They're not brother and sister, they're just kind of random kids out there. Will is a scaredy cat, and Cassie is kind of terrified of werewolves and always talking about werewolves all the time. There's also a hermit, which I forgot to mention in my episode review for Werewolf of Fever Swamp because I had so much else to talk about. It was like a 25-minute review video, so whatever. The hermit is also kind of by himself out in the woods. Nobody knows what he does or if he is a werewolf of some sort. Nobody really knows. That's kind of the whole basis and premise for the storyline. It's really good. The art here from Gabriel Hernandez is fantastic. I really dig that. Now, moving along to the next story. The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, adapted by Greg Ruth, or Greg Ruth. I'm pretty sure it's Greg Ruth, R-U-T-H, just like Ruth, if you had a girl named Ruth. I think Werewolf of Fever Swamp has the best storyline adapted here to comics. I think this has the best art. The art that Greg Ruth did for this is just... Dude, it's unbelievably great. I don't think any of these Goosebumps classics had this kind of art to them. This is just unbelievably good. This is like a Silent Hill comic. If you've ever read Silent Hill comics, let me try to peek around here too so I can see if you can get some of the art. If you've ever read any of the Silent Hill comic books, you know that kind of more realistic art style that they typically go for that. Even though they're very abstract, I don't really like that. This does it well. It does it well and it works. It works so well for the story. Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, basically a couple of kids are going out to like the boonies, like a farm that their grandparents own, to visit them. It's a very much kind of summertime / early fall type of storyline. I really like that about it. Now, there are some scarecrows out in the field that may or may not be coming to life. Nobody really knows why, but they look like they are at nighttime, at midnight. And there's a farmhand who's a real oddball. He has a kid named Styx who's kind of a bully and mean. He's more mean in the book than he was in this comic adaptation, I guess because we have a lot of, like, you know, a lot less time to deal with that character because it's like a 40-page summary. But these don't feel like summaries. To me, they actually feel very thorough and very well told. If you had never read any Goosebumps ever, and I gave you this graphic novel here, this trade paperback to pick up, and you read these 3 stories, you would get entirely different feelings about these different stories. I really think that. I really do. Again, I think this story has the best art. It looks great. The summary of the story is fine. It's solid. It's really good. I think the Werewolf of Fever Swamp is a better story than Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, personally. But still. I also think that the ending of the story of Werewolf of Fever Swamp, I think it has the same issue that the actual novel has, of having the ending be a little bit too rushed, just slightly. But that kind of summary to it kind of works to its benefit, so it doesn't feel too rushed. Yeah, I just want to mention that as well. But Scarecrow Walks at Midnight is also very solid. I really love both of those first 2 stories, but then... then we make our way to the victim, the bloody, murdered corpse of the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena, adapted by Scott Morse. Okay, so Scott Morse, I was convinced when I started to see this artwork that this was the guy who created Bone. Now, apparently it's not. Apparently it's not. But it sure does look like it. I'm not a fan of Bone because I haven't read it yet. I don't really like to call myself a fan of things I haven't really experienced yet. I've heard Bone's great. It probably is. I'm a big comic book fan, so comic books, kind of my thing. And when I hear that Bone is great, I'm not judging Bone on that, but I do think the art is a little odd to me. I don't really like that kind of cutesy art, cartoonish very basic drawing style that I see with Bone. I guess that's one reason I haven't really picked it up yet, if I'm being honest, but I do look forward to reading it because I hear so much praise about it. Just the art puts me off. When I show you this art, I gotta be honest, man. Between the summary that you're given of the Abominable Snowman of Pasadena novel and the art style too, both are horrible. Both of those particular angles of analyzing and critiquing this adaptation are terrible. Now, in other stories that we've talked about here on the channel for these Goosebumps graphics things, you have 3 books adapted per release, right, for each volume, each trade paperback. And usually, even if one has, like I said, every single book, every single one of these volumes will have at least one that has terrible art within those 3 adaptations. At least one's going to have terrible art. But at least the story summary will not be too bad, you know, from my opinion, from what I remember. This, on both ends, is horrible. The art hurts my eyes, okay? And I'm going to show you some of what we're talking about here. And of course, all these pictures, all of them, all 3 of the stories that are adapted here, are in black and white. And I have no issue with that. But when you have something that's very newspaper cartoonish looking, like if you have a newspaper comic, like if you still read those, you know, but you don't, let's just admit it, you don't. But for you folks out there who remember what that's like, you remember the kind of zany lines they'd have and the big thick lines for sideburns and stuff? That's what this art looks like. Look at this trash. Look at this. It's awful. It's genuinely like... Now, I'm going to say this too. Let me get to this first before you get mad at me. There are going to be people out there who are fans of that art style. I am not one of them. So if you're a fan of that, you make your own book review. Or a nasty comment down in the comment section. Forgive me, guys. And forgive me too, Mr. Scott Morse. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be rude. You clearly have some kind of talent here. Summarizing stories and doing cartoonish art like that, trying to be a wannabe Bone. If you're not the creator, I don't think you are, according to what the back of the book has, and its advertisement for Bone. I don't think you're the guy that created that, but still, I'm immensely put off with the art, like immediately. As soon as I started reading this, I was like, I'm not about that Abominable Snowman of Pasadena storyline because of that art alone. It looks odd. The dad's forehead is enormous, worse than mine. I have a big forehead. That guy has a bigger forehead. He has a 5 head, as people say. And I don't have words for it. Now, mind you, Werewolf in Fever Swamp, I started that today. I flew through it really fast because it's comics. You can get through comics pretty quick compared to a regular novel or a novella or anything like that. Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Flew through that as well. Within like 20 minutes, I had read the whole thing because it was just so good, and I had a lot of free time tonight thanks to my wife and taking care of the cleaning and stuff. I was really thankful she did that. My wife is the best, honestly. But I had a lot of free time, so I got to do stuff like that. And then I got to Abominable Snowman of Pasadena. It took me like an hour to get through this because my head would literally, and my eyes would literally hurt because of the art style. I don't know who at Scholastic thought this was a good idea to let this happen constantly. Every single volume that came out was like this. At least one story in there had the crappiest art I've ever seen in my life. And I know I couldn't do any better. I know I couldn't, but I'm not going to call this good just because I can't do it. You know? So, apparently my camera is about to stop recording in like 4 minutes. I guess I have to reset the thing again. I do this all the time where I run out of time. It's not because my memory is full. It's just because the camera does this for whatever reason. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. And then when I reset it, it has like 5 hours of recording time. I don't know. Anyway, Goosebumps Graphics Creepy Creatures, or Goosebumps Graphics Volume 1 Creepy Creatures, is not a perfect book, but the first 2 story adaptations in here, Werewolf in Fever Swamp, Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, they're phenomenal. They're absolutely phenomenal. I recommend this book alone on that. I recommend the Volume 2 and Volume 3 books as well because of that, because they're just fantastically well done. They have so much to offer between the art and the story summary. Abominable Snowman of Pasadena is a horrible mess. Again, on both fronts, whether it be the art or whether it be the story summary, the way it's told, it's just so wordy. There's so many words on the page, which I don't like that in comics anyway, but I especially don't like it in summary comics, and I especially don't like it when the art's sloppy and there's just black and white everywhere, all over the place. It wasn't easy to balance that out. It wasn't easy for my eyes to adjust. that's obnoxious. That's really obnoxious, and you can only read that for so long and have to stop. You know, if you're a fan of that art style or you're a fan of Morse, please forgive me. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. I can't help it. It's horrible. So, guys, forgive me for that. But when it comes to this book, if I had to rate it, I'm trying to rush. If I had to rate this on a 5-star basis, I would easily give this a 4 out of 5 stars. It's fantastic for the most part. It's just that last third of the book that is such a mess. Such a mess. But again, in typical fashion with Volume 1, 2, and 3, all of these are very well put together, I would say. You know, Shocker on Shock Street, One Day at Horrorland, those are some of the best that I've seen from these adaptations. They've been really good. This is a great example of one that just completely falls apart and completely falls flat, in my opinion. It just kind of ruins itself because of the adaptation of Abominable Snowman in Pasadena. Anyway, what are your thoughts on all this? Put your thoughts in comments down below. What do you think is the best Goosebumps graphics book? I don't know. I think it might be the Shocker on Shock Street One Day at Horrorland one for me. I don't know which volume that was, but I do love that one the most, probably. This one is a very good one. I might rank these at some point. I think I'm going to do that once I get the Slappy Tales of Terror or whatever. Maybe all the comics, I'll review all those or rank them all in one big video. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being here. God bless you guys. Have a good weekend. And I will see you at the next review, hopefully for Slappy's Tales of Terror or whatever it's called. The other comic thing that came as like a reboot of these. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless you. Goodbye, guys.